Hello, everyone. I'm Mindy Yang. I'm the co-founder of World Taste and Smell Association. We are thrilled to have you here with us today for this important conversation on mood-enhancing food and beverages. At the World Taste and Smell Association, we're a nonprofit alliance of scientists, clinicians, creators, and change makers working across disciplines to advance the science, awareness, and applications all around taste and smell. These senses, often overlooked, are essential to our daily quality of life, to our emotional well-being, and to how we experience food, memory, connection, and identity. We launched the Smell Association to fill a critical gap. Despite 1 in 3 people experience taste and or smell disorders in their lifetimes, these issues remain underdiagnosed, underfunded, and widely misunderstood. So our work is to translate sensory science into tools and public programs that shape people's understanding around sensory health. Together, we can have a more joyous and delicious way of life. So in today's session, we wanted to share and explore the emotional and functional dimensions of food and flavor, particularly in a time when consumers are seeking comfort, clarity, and connection. You'll hear from innovators at the intersection of neuroscience, trend forecasting, brand strategy, and formulation, each bringing a unique lens to how flavor can do more than tasting good. It can support mood, cognition, and care. Whether you are here as a health professional, brand leader, sensory scientist, or simply someone who's curious about how our senses shape our emotional lives, you're in the right place. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to our board member and a wonderful producer. I want to welcome Jenna and thank her so much for putting this together. Jenna, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mindy. I know that our first presenter is she's just ready and chomping at the bit to share her presentation, Blending Flavor and Function, Addison Cain from Spate. So let me pass it over to her and I will formally introduce myself before our panel a little bit later. One moment while I give you the operations, Addison. There you are.
Thank you, Jenna. Hi, everyone.
course.
My name is Addison Cain. I'm the Senior Insights and Marketing Lead at Spate. Today, I'm going to be talking to you from a trend forecasting perspective, looking at blending flavor and function, where we're going to explore flavor trends as well as functional benefits that are growing across Google Search and TikTok. Okay, so first things first, what are some of the questions that we're going to answer today? First, what supplements are driving consumer interest across Google Search and TikTok? While consumers indeed have plenty of functional benefits that they're searching across foods, we always find that the most distilled version of this happens first in the supplement space. So we're going to dig into that. Next, we're going to look at the mood-related concerns that consumers are seeking to treat with supplements and ingestibles. We will follow that up with our top trending flavors across food and beverage, which is a new feature that Spate has recently launched. And finally, how can brands tap into this data to align with flavor development for consumers? So who is Spate? I'll just quickly touch on what our data sources are. We cover Google Search and TikTok. We also recently added Instagram to the platform. And so really we aggregate these Google Search signals, these millions of TikTok views, and we put them on a nice, easy to use self-serve dashboard that helps brands and marketers surface key trend signals coming from consumers. We really focus on the pre-sales data of the consumer funnel. So what does that mean? We're focusing on awareness and consideration as demonstrated through TikTok views, Instagram posts, and then next step down in the funnel, we're looking at consumer intent. So when a consumer takes something that they've learned about on social media and they search it on Google, they're demonstrating intent to engage with this trend in real life. And then, of course, finally, you have the purchase step. But again, Spate is really focused up there on the pre-sales consumer signals. Today, the topics that I'm going to be looking at are using our popularity index, which currently covers Google Search and TikTok. And so what is the popularity index and how are we going to be applying it to these trends? The popularity index combines data from Google and TikTok to show how popular a trend is holistically, and it also adjusts for platform-specific growth. And so what do I mean by that? If we know that Google searches are naturally declining, whereas TikTok views are naturally rising. And so what the popularity index does is that it adjusts for this platform-specific growth. So you're getting a really clear picture of what's happening with the trend. On the right-hand side, what you're seeing is the time series for mushroom coffee. And what you'll notice is that you can see that this trend has, of course, had pretty consistent upward growth since 2022. And what we see as indicated by the red line is that this trend actually over-indexes on TikTok. So a lot of the conversation is happening on social media, but it's also driving some growth on Google search, meaning consumers are doing their research on Google, but they're also joining this community of mushroom coffee users and kind of like discussing that product on there. All right, so now you've learned a little bit about Spate. And so what I will do next is I'm going to walk you through some of the key wellness trends that we're spotting in the data currently, according to the popularity index. First of all, supplements and adjustables are on the rise. This won't surprise anyone probably on this conference, but we have seen 22.5% popularity growth since last year. And based on 3 years of historical data, Spate predicts with very likely certainty that this category is going to continue to grow up to 20.8% in the coming 12 months. So when we take a deeper dive into these trends and what's really driving the shifts in the supplement category, what we see up top, and first what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover those trends that are driving the most significant volume changes, meaning these are really the big drivers. So this is where we're seeing things like probiotics, collagen, magnesium, NAD, and then creatine. So probiotics and magnesium we're going to get into because these are actually key ingredients where consumers are indeed searching for like mood related concerns. And it's interesting because I think especially with probiotics, and of course like we see this, a ton of this talks about like gut health, of course, but what we're seeing is increasingly strong links to the consumer with probiotics and depression. So consumers are looking to treat depression with probiotics, which is very interesting. Similarly with magnesium, we're seeing things like mood swings. So consumers are, again, increasingly aware of what they eat and how they supplement can positively or even negatively impact the way that they are feeling. And then, of course, you see things that are a little bit more maybe aesthetics driven. We see a lot of interest in collagen. Consumers look for this for a number of benefits, both internal and external. We see a lot of interest in terms of hair growth, but also we see a lot of interest in terms of, joint health. NAD is one of those supplements that has seen growth recently for its features across longevity, where consumers are looking. It's kind of a broad benefit, but consumers really are interested in incorporating this into their routine for that reason. Now, when we look at those supplements that are maybe smaller, but driving really significant year-over-year growth in terms of popularity, what we see is some other really interesting things, and we see a little bit more interesting formats coming into play here as well. So with moringa supplements, consumers look for this. Right now, consumers are really trying to understand what moringa does. This is a lower popularity trend with really significant year-over-year growth. And so what that means is that consumers are kind of, they're catching on. They're really interested in this, but it's, they don't exactly know what it's for just yet. And so what Spate data enables is that we can see when consumers are asking questions like, what is the benefit of moringa supplements? But we can also see when their queries are starting to mature, when they start to associate specific benefits with specific supplement types. Some other stuff that we're seeing, and really a lot of flavor opportunities happening in here, include clear protein, where consumers are looking for this as a part of like protein waters before they go to the gym. And if you haven't checked out Water Talk yet, I definitely recommend doing that. Having a flavored water where you can also get in some protein is one thing consumers are looking to do. We also see pre-workout gummies, so consumers looking to take their pre-workout routine from a liquid format, especially into something more like edible, like a gummy. We also see liquid multivitamins, again, great flavor opportunities lying within this, and consumers are looking for all different types of vitamins within this liquid multivitamin and all different types of benefits. Finally, energy shots. Consumers are especially seeking like caffeine-based energy boosting shots that they can take in a quick go. That's, just essentially a quicker version of the morning coffee. And so I wanted to quickly snapshot magnesium, and I'm going to snapshot probiotics too. What you see here on the time series for magnesium is that this trend is really owned by Google search. What does that tell us? So with Google search owning the share here, what this tells us is that consumers are really interested in researching this, and they're also really interested in using magnesium and purchasing it in real life. This particular ingredient has 18% predicted growth for the coming 12 months and generally has been a really strong player in the supplement space for the last 2 years now. A couple of things I wanted to highlight when I dove deeper into magnesium and what magnesium was, doing is essentially like, what are the concerns that are kind of mood focused where we're seeing magnesium really take off? Cortisol belly is one, and we'll talk a little bit more about cortisol's kind of consumer awareness, which is very high. And then we also see things like adrenal fatigue. So consumers are increasingly aware of, the impact of certain stress hormones having on their body, and whether that's, mentally or on their physicality, such as the cortisol belly. And then adrenal fatigue, consumers are looking for things that, help them feel less stressed, less overwhelmed, and they're looking to magnesium for this. Magnesium is also interesting because consumers look for it not only as an ingestible, as we see on the right-hand side, they're pairing it with things like L-theanine or vitamin D. They're also looking to apply it topically. One of the most popular top formats, or two of the most popular formats, are topical, meaning it's a magnesium oil and a magnesium spray. When we take another step and look at this on TikTok, what we see is there's an increasingly growing audience of viewers on TikTok that are looking at cortisol levels alongside magnesium. And what this means is that consumers are turning towards magnesium to help reduce stress through brands and through products like Nello's Super Calm, which is a powder that they can mix into drinks. They have many different flavors. I want to say that peach is the one that we see coming up most often. But again, that's where we really start to see some of these flavor functions that come into play. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the flavors that are rising. All right, and so I will keep it moving. And also, if anybody has questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. Okay, and then looking at probiotics, probiotics has really just been a consistent upward driver of growth over the last couple of years. We see that again, this is driving significant amounts of Google searches. It's owned by Google. Again, consumers are looking to engage with this trend in real life. They're demonstrating intent to purchase, and the outlook for probiotics is very strong.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if you have it on hand.
And looking at probiotic concerns, again, I kind of mentioned this at the top of this section, but we see that depression is increasingly important and linked with concerns alongside probiotics. So consumers are looking for probiotics to treat depression ultimately. We also see some of the top ingredients that consumers look to pair probiotics with include prebiotics and apple cider vinegar. From the format side, we're actually seeing a lot of interest in probiotic toothpaste. This is another great opportunity for brands, a great way for people to come in and test out some new flavors, test out even some new fragrances, and include those functional benefits that consumers want to see from probiotics. And so I wanted to also, now that we've seen where some of these concerns are percolating that are mood related alongside some of the most popular change driving supplements in the category, I wanted to also just kind of step back and zoom out a little bit and look at what is happening across supplements overall. So this is looking at the entire supplements category across and like filtering for mood-related concerns that consumers are really focused on treating through supplementation. And therefore, I think this is a really good proxy for something consumers are looking to also treat through ingestibles. So this doesn't have to only be supplements, but they are creating that internal mood link. So keep that in mind. As I mentioned, there's a lot going on with cortisol and consumer awareness of how cortisol and this hormone kind of impacts your appearance, whether that's bloating, a la the cortisol belly, or whether that's cortisol face, which consumers perceive as this kind of puffy face that happens as a result of being stressed for a consistent amount of time or having elevated cortisol levels. Another thing that we're seeing, we also saw this popping up alongside magnesium, is adrenal fatigue. This is, kind of feels like a specific concern. Consumers are quite educated these days about what stress and what different types of stress there is. So adrenal fatigue is from the ongoing, consistent, stressful events happening, and consumers are, they're under chronic stress now, probably more than ever. And so this is something they're looking to treat with supplementation. Finally, we see mood swings. So again, this is just consumers looking more broadly, not even for specific supplement types, but for supplements overall to help with mood swings. So consumers are looking for ways to treat, their own ups and downs through supplements. And then finally, we see brain fog, where consumers are, maybe they're feeling a little cloudy during the middle of the day, and they're trying to figure out a way that they can kind of address this by maybe taking a supplement in the morning, or even, having a healthy lunch or something along those lines. So before we get into the flavors that are growing across the market, what I wanted to also just take a look at was cortisol more generally. And what you see here is that cortisol has had significant year-on-year growth across Google search and TikTok. And one thing that's really interesting here is that TikTok owns the conversation. And so what this tells us is that consumers are really taking to TikTok. They're sharing their issues with stress, with cortisol, and with different hormonal issues. And they're sharing their experiences, both from a mood perspective, but as well from a general health perspective. And so now we will move into flavor trends. So I think what we wanted to do here was to kind of set the stage with some of the biggest benefits related to mood that consumers are looking for, and then look at Spate's flavor data and tell us, okay, now that we know how consumers are interested in supplementing, how should we, position either, supplementation or foods? How can we speak to them in the flavors that they want to be seeing? And so when we were doing this research, what we did is we looked at the top food and beverage categories by year-over-year growth, starting. And so what you'll see here is that meals have driven the most significant growth, followed by dairy alternatives. So think of things like almond milk. And then snacks have grown, as well as beverages without alcohol. Today, we are going to deep dive specifically into snacks and beverages without alcohol. So looking at snacks, this is really interesting one because I think this is where we see a lot of indulgence from consumers. So chocolate and pistachio are huge drivers here for many reasons. I think one of those reasons is the Dubai chocolate bar, which has gone viral on TikTok. But we've also seen things like pistachio lattes or pistachio cream. And so consumers are really kind of showing their indulgent moment when it comes to snacks. And we also see, of course, peanut butter, but we still see some things that are light and fruity coming into play. So like pomegranate. And then, of course, we also see coffee flavors happening a lot. So there's some really interesting stuff happening there. And again, what we're looking at here are the big change drivers. Now, when we look at things that are emerging by growth, we're actually seeing the tide start to turn just a little bit. What we're seeing here is that consumers are really looking for fruity, refreshing items. So there's a little bit of a seasonality effect here happening, of course, as we head into the summer. But I also want to call out just like the international impact that we're seeing here with things like durian, guava, lychee. I mean, there's so many different flavors that consumers are looking for, and they're no longer just looking for like stuff that maybe you could easily find at your local grocery store. These are things that are quite exotic for US consumers, and they're just kind of, it's interesting to see how relevant the fruit flavor profile is here. Looking at guava, what we're seeing here is really interesting because I think, and you'll see it in the image here on the left-hand side, but for US consumers, this is, again, a fairly premium flavor. It's not something that's like classically included with our fruit candies or, you know, easily found in your grocery store. But it's quite nostalgic, especially for Chinese consumers who might be really familiar with the guava candies that are like these little kind of green ones that you see on the side here. And consumers are loving that in the US, and they're finding it really appealing. They're finding it really like kind of a little sweet treat that also is quite light and refreshing and very like cute. If you haven't tried them, I highly recommend. They're amazing. And I just wanted to kind of double down on that. Looking at the top Google search queries, what we're seeing here is Chinese guava candy, guava Laffy Taffy even. And then when you look at TikTok, what you're seeing is this is dominated almost entirely by the Chinese guava candy that I was just mentioning. So consumers are really talking about this flavor. They're really interested in it, and they're really talking to each other also, like on social media about what they like and how they're using it. And again, you can see it's very cute. I love these. Okay, and then jumping into beverages without alcohol, what I wanted to call out here is we're seeing a good mix of fruity again, but also indulgence. So these are the big change drivers. And what we see here is that blueberry is driving the most significant positive change. We'll kind of dive into why that's happening. We also see watermelon, blackberry, and cherry. So again, very fruit forward here. But we also see cookie butter. So consumers are looking especially for like cookie butter flavored coffees and all different sorts of like interesting, kind of more decadent beverages. So I think looking at the two categories we're talking about here today, we really see the intersection of kind of light fruit forward, but also indulgence. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about flavors and you're thinking about, you know, what are the tastes and the smells and the sensations you want consumers to experience. Looking at the top flavors and beverage by year-over-year growth, we see ube, soursop, gooseberry, and again, I want to emphasize here, these are quite exotic to the US market, but not exotic internationally. These are quite popular in many different markets, including, you know, in Asia, Japan. I think soursop also, same thing here, but consumers are loving it in the US, and it's growing and it's really gaining traction. We also see even some more savory options being paired with sweetness, like sea salt. In looking at the flavor spotlight, we wanted to emphasize blueberry. You will see here the kind of seasonal affect that I had mentioned earlier. But what I do want to call out is that every year it keeps coming back stronger and stronger. So consumers really are digging into this flavor profile, and they're using it across many different formats, but especially within beverage. And what type of beverage? Consumers are looking for their own mocktails. They're incorporating things like spirulina to make it like extra blue. So it's very visual, and it's also like very tasty. And then we see things like people looking for Sprite blueberry lemonade, blueberry juice, pink lemonade blueberry. So there's a lot happening here, and consumers love this flavor profile. So before I leave you all today, I just wanted to wrap this up and kind of give you a couple of takeaways based on the data that we've shared here. First of all, it's really important when you're talking to your audience, whatever that may be, that you are meeting consumers where they are. We see that like consumers are so curious. They've done a lot of their own research, and they're really looking to, basically learn a lot, but also share their own knowledge. Use their curiosity to help guide you. By looking at data, you can see what consumers want to know and what they think they already know. So use this to form your education and help consumers kind of, learn more about that. Also, kind of pair flavors with feel-good functions. So I just want to call out, like, we saw so much like light and fruity stuff that's very like refreshing and, kind of feel good in summary. Consider ways that that can be paired with functional benefits that also kind of play on that natural association the flavors might have with like positivity or mood boosting. Finally, balance your indulgence with intention. So consumers really are interested in things like cookie butter or chocolate pistachio, and they want to treat themselves. Help them do that, but also help them, not stray from their wellness goals through strategic innovation and through incorporating these flavors more strategically. So look for ways that you can also deliver these flavors, but that also like not only for taste, but for comfort and for health supporting benefits. If you want to download the slides, you can do that here. And I'm sure that the team will probably be sending these out as well. But yeah, that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Addison. I appreciate it. I honestly, hearing cortisol face makes me feel very, I guess, seen and understood, because I had that in Barcelona Perfumery Congress when WTSA had a session there, but my face was so puffy and I didn't know what was happening. Obviously, I was stressed out, but it was cortisol face.
Yeah, I think we're all learning. Yeah, I get the same thing too. When I heard about that, I was like, oh wow, really? So yeah.
It's a relief kind of, but now I just need to get on TikTok and see what's next.
Yeah.
How do I fix it?
Totally.
Thank you so much for
Of
your time. And we'll be sure to send out all of these slides. And if anyone should have questions for Addison offline, we will be sure to connect them. Or Addison, if you just want to drop your email really quick.
Yeah, of course.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks, Addison.
Bye.
All right. So let me pull up our next session here. One moment, guys. And we are going to have a neuroscience representative from IFF share some updates and one second, you're about to see my whole screen, so don't let me be embarrassed. All right, so neuroscience of mood foods, the science behind the trends. We're here with Anne Besnard. Anne, if you want to introduce yourself for a moment before you get going, that would be really great.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Very nice to be with you today. So I am not a neuroscientist, I'm a chemist, but I had the chance. No, that's okay. I'm taking care in IFF of everything that is related to cognitive and data science. I've been 21 years with the company. I have a very strong passion for connecting the molecule to the senses and to the behaviors of people. So dealing with a lot of things around, obviously, sensory science, chemistry, consumer science, neuroscience, and data science. So it's really everything that is happening to those little tiny volatile molecules once they arrive in, they hit our senses, and what is happening after that. So I think I need to share my presentation with you. So screen sharing up, here we go. On it, and let's get started.
Beautiful.
So, obviously, this can be a very heavy topic, and I could honestly speak just on those 10 slides for hours. So I will. The idea today is really to give you a top-line navigation on how things work and why there is a lot of importance in the choice of the flavors. Addison mentioned some interesting things in the discussion before, but yes, how important it is to understand that connection between aromatic molecules and cognition. One thing that I want to highlight, we are not talking about adaptogens in this presentation. It's really about considering flavors as mixtures of volatile aromatic compound and in the context of food and beverage consumption. So we are absolutely not talking about hacking people's brain activity, but it's really about creating experiences that resonate with consumers. And yeah, I'm not sure if I said that. If you have any question in the middle of my presentation, please do not hesitate. I prefer taking questions as they come. So I want to get started with reminding everyone that eating is a process. And it's a process that is going to involve lots of changes in the nature of the stimuli. It gets started with a chemical stimulus, and those are the chemical signals that are lying in the environment and in our context that are generated under the influence of the food composition. And this chemical signal is going to be transformed into an electrical signal, and this is the sensation, when it's hitting the receptors that are called sensors in this context. So what we call the receptors, the sensors, are actually the interface between the environment we evolve in and our human body. And then those sensations, those electrical signals are traveling in the brain. So they reach our brain where they are going to be integrated to provide this final conscious perception of the flavor that we have. And this perception will be linked to the hedonic response of the consumer, so whether they like it and what kind of food choices they're going to make. So in order to do that, there are several senses. So we all know the 5 key senses that are being involved in the eating process. And so we have the vision, we have the audition as a feedback from the chewing. We have everything that is happening in terms of mouthfeel, so related to the somatosensation, what is related to the gustation. So our taste bud with the sweet, umami, bitter, salt. Which one did I forget? Sweet, umami, bitter, salt, and acid, of course, and olfaction. And olfaction is the one we are going to dissect today, because this is really the one of importance when it comes to thinking about the well-being and creating this experience. So we have here a lovely heavy representation, but really everything we need is there. So as I mentioned, the chemical signals, the volatile aromatic compound, are the ones that are generated by our environment, and more specifically by the food. So we are going first to smell the food. So this is the first thing that is happening. And with the breathing, so the aromatic molecules, the volatile compound, are going to reach the olfactory cleft. So this is what we call the orthonasal pathway. But there is another pathway when the food is inside the mouth. So with the breathing, it's traveling up through the pharynx and also reaching the same olfactory cleft. So actually, whether it's in the mouth or from outside, we still do perceive the odors from our nose. So what is happening there is on those little cilia that are surrounded by the mucus in the olfactory cleft, there are lots of receptors, olfactory receptors, which are going when, so that's the usual key lock image. So when they bind to the receptors, so this is when the electrical signal is going to happen, and then it will travel from those olfactory neurons to what we call glomeruli, and those glomeruli are going then to bring the signal to the olfactory bulb. So what's happening after that, and this is what makes the sense of olfaction very different from the rest, is that the signal is going to travel to actually several structures in the brain. Interestingly, this is the way it is integrated in the brain is quite different from the other sensation. So there is a part of the signal that is going to the thalamus. The thalamus can be considered as the central station of all sensory information. So whether it's from vision, audition, or gustation, all the signals are going to go there before being redispatched to the appropriate brain structure. However, for a long time, it was believed that the signal from olfaction was not going to the thalamus, but that has proven to be incorrect. There is actually a small structure in the thalamus, the olfactory thalamus actually, that receive this information. But what it's doing with it is, for the moment, rather unknown. The other part of the olfactory signal are going to reach other structure of the limbic system. So the limbic system, which is made of, for example, the piriform cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the entorhinal cortex, this limbic system is responsible for the processing of emotions. With different functions. So there is a part of the signal that is going to the piriform cortex, and this is where we will have the conscious perception of the smell. There is a part, so let me not say anything wrong. The piriform, I need to check one thing. Bear with me. No, so that was fine. So the piriform cortex for the conscious representation of the smell. Then we have the amygdala. So there is a part of the signal going there, and this is responsible for motivational and emotional aspect of the smell. And then we have the entorhinal cortex and the hippocampus, which are responsible for episodic and place memory. So this is why actually when a smell is hitting your nostril, you would remember not only the emotions that you felt when you have smelled it in the past, but also where you were in place and time. So with that, we see that there is really a direct link between the molecules that can be released by the food and the beverages that we consume, and the emotions. So that's this is of course something that can be leveraged, but there is an additional aspect which is important, and this is the fact that olfaction is also connected to high cognitive function. Because it so happened that this limbic system, so you've seen all the parts before on the slide, is physically connected, so physically and functionally connected with other structure in the brain, which are responsible for cognition, like for example, attention. And because of that, and all those parts, as soon as well, there is a saying in neuroscience that says when things are connected together, they fire together. So, which means that as soon as one structure is being stimulated, the other structures are also responded. So our olfactory system is directly connected to the processing of emotions and to the processing of cognition. Is there any question at this stage, things that are unclear that you wish me to clarify before I move forward?
This is amazing. Yes, please continue, because I feel like the next section will contextualize that. Obviously, my brain is not a chemist as yours is, but you're doing an amazing job breaking it down. Thank you.
So moving forward, what it means for us as an industry. For a long time, we optimized the product with a sensory hedonic axis. So really considering, and if you think about the process that I demonstrated at the beginning of the presentation, from the chemical stimuli to the hedonic response. So that was our classical way of looking at it. So understanding the sensory drivers of liking and trying to enhance and find the optimal sensorial profile. However, from what we've seen, so at the moment we reach the perception, so the integration in the brain, it's not only the hedonic response that we are looking at, but it's also the emotional and cognitive response. So that gives lots of opportunity in terms of optimization of the profile of the product to work on a sensory emotional optimization. So something that is always a bit challenging, because obviously we have some action standard in the industry with those, famous 60-40 preference. What is going to happen working with things that are maybe a bit less hedonic driven, but more emotional driven, is that we also need to rethink the KPIs that we are using for validating the product. Because some products might not hit, I don't know, a 7 on a 9-point scale when we go to consumer tests, but they're going to resonate very strongly from an emotional point of view, which is really going to create a connection between the consumer and the product. And this connection is what will ensure, because the repeated purchase and the repeated consumption, because each time it's going to reinforce this emotional connection. So that's, and especially post-COVID, where lots of people need more reassurance, well-being. So mental wellness is really on the top of the priority of our consumers. This is really an axis that can be further leveraged. So what can we actually impact? So we mentioned cognitive performance, so elements like focus, like alertness, memory as well. We also can work on emotions and feelings, and maybe mood in the future. But here we need to bring a bit of vocabulary, because it's always challenging to define precisely what are those elements. Emotions are seen as brief. There is a very identified trigger, and this is a reaction that has a cognitive, well, it has a physical component. If you take, well, I can take myself, I'm seeing a spider. The first thing I do is that I freeze. So that's my physical reaction. And then there is a behavioral reaction, which is I scream and possibly I run. And then after there is the verbalization of what I experienced, which is a deep fear. So the feelings are being considered as the emotions that have been processed. So once the people are capable of verbalizing them. Moods are a bit more complex, because they are a sort of diffuse affective state, and they generally last longer than emotions. They are less intense in terms of response, and we can't really identify a target to them. So I think realistically, what we are talking about in our context of food and beverage is more emotions So a direct reaction to an identified stimuli, and feelings, which are what our consumers are able to verbalize. So this has implication, obviously, in the way we can test the product. So for development or for validation. So it means we also need to evolve when we are engaging ourselves into emotional design. We also need to evolve in the way we run tests. As we've seen, the reaction to an emotion has several components. Which means, so you have the verbalized part, so the explicit part. So this is when we can ask questionnaires to our consumers, but there is also the body reaction, which we can measure either through physiological measurement, or if we push even further, we can make the use of brain scanning method to see what's the reaction of the brain to the stimuli. But we can also use behavioral method to assess the behavioral component. Can be very useful, for example, when you want to look into memory test, into focus, into alertness. So for each of those type of what we call implicit measurements, so where we are more into observing the consumers, so for behavioral method, physiological measurement, brain scanning method, there is ton of tests that are available. So I'm not going to give you a long laundry list on this. There are plenty of things available. Obviously, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to deep dive a bit in this. What I wanted to show you, because it looks a bit like, you know, sometimes science fiction when we talk about this possibility to actually measure the effect of the olfactive component on what it does in the brain. I wanted to share with you, to close the presentation, a research that we carried out together with our scent division and the Laboratoire Monique Rémy, so which are the which own our a nice collection of botanicals for IFF. The study we did on the long-lasting impact of odorant, because this is one thing, you know, to say, yes, we can elicit an emotion when there is the consumption of the product, but, you know, we say lavender is relaxing, but how long does that last? And is it true that something is happening there? So this is a paper that is about to be published, so it's been accepted. And we did a proof of concept with 14 healthy women. We had 2 sessions, 1 week apart and randomized, where the participants have been exposed for 14 minutes, either to a lavender in the room or to nothing at all. So they were just, you know, reading, doing something else, not really focusing on what was happening around around them. And then we checked with resting state fMRI, and we also collected some explicit data through a questionnaire. And we had a look at the state of their brain and what they were perceiving of themselves in terms of relaxation before being exposed to the stimuli. Just after the stimuli, and then 1 hour and 2 hours after exposure. And what you see here, which is quite interesting, is what is happening, the effect of the lavender. So this is the comparison. So that's a contrast between 2 hours after and before. So on the figure A, this is the impact over time of the lavender. And on the figure B, this is the impact of time. And we see that there are some areas of the brain that are still significantly impacted, activated 2 hours later in the case of having been exposed to lavender. So that really shows that although, as I said, we're not talking about adaptogen, it's just what is happening from the moment that chemical stimuli hit the olfactory cleft and after with the brain integration. So we see that there is still some impact of some component over time. So of course, this is a proof of concept, and we know that there are plenty of other odorants, but you know, this is the starting point of a fantastic journey into emotional design for food and beverages. So I hope I didn't do too long. Any questions?
I just want to say, Anne, this is amazing. Thank you for previewing your research with us. We didn't want to rush through the presentation because I think this is such an amazing science, and especially around this neuro and flavor and fragrance space. So to be continued, but we appreciate you showing up and giving us a preview of all of the science behind the scenes. Jenna?
All right. Okay, here we go. Let's start on our next panel. One moment. Here we go. Let me know. Can everybody see my screen? Mindy? Is everybody there? Am I on mute?
Looks great.
Okay. I was like having a Bueller moment. Okay, great. So let's get this started. I'm Jenna Troyli. I'm going to be the moderator of our Mood Food panel. I'm just so excited to be here. I'm a new board member of the World Taste and Smell Association. I'm the co-founder of Noted LLC. So we do all things in flavor and fragrance in terms of marketing and communication. But what I'm really excited about is our panelists who are joining us today. I wanted to thank you all for your time. First up, we have Deniz Ataman, who is the deputy editor of FoodNavigator-USA. She was also my predecessor at Perfumer and Flavorist Plus magazine, which, I mean, come on, had to have a former P&F person on, and she is so incredibly versed in this category. So I'm really excited to have her speak to some of these trends that she's seeing and reporting on. Next up, we have Mark Cozzi. I know Mark from Chicago, and he is the COO and co-founder of the Bettering Company. So he's going to tell us a little bit about the Bettering Company and how that got started, which I do love all companies that get started over wine, but more to come. And then we have Chris Peruzzi, who is the COO and founder of the Functional Chocolate Company. So I'm excited that we have some chocolate here after listening to Addison, and excited to talk a little bit also because it kind of started from hormones. So more to come there. And then we have Dr. Carly Snyder, who is the founder of Mood Bars. Very cool about the genesis of mood bars. We'll hear more from that. But as a psychiatrist, I think that that's going to be really exciting to hear from. So let's get started. Let me take this down so I can see all of your faces. Here we go. All right. So if you don't mind, I know I kind of already alluded to it, Mark, but I'd love to hear about how the Bettering Company got started. It's a newer company, but you've already done so much so far. So if you could share that, that'd be great.
Sure. And thank you for having me on the panel today. It was actually almost 6 years ago to the date that I was having dinner with two friends in New York. And one of my friends is an oncologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and the other is a biology professor at NYU. And we sat down and ordered drinks. And my oncologist friend, Dr. Neil Iyengar, Neil said, you know, we should think about consuming less alcohol and replacing it with cannabis. And that was an epiphany for me. And so fast forward, I did a lot of research. I landed on creating an edibles brand, a cannabis edibles brand, modeling it after emerging and startup CPG companies. One of our lead investors is Peter Rahal, who co-founded RX Bar. We launched selling our products in Illinois in the fall of 2023 and in New York about a year ago.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of trying them, and we can get into some of those different offerings that you all have and kind of how that works with your consumer base and demands. Dr. Snyder, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about how and why you started, that would be great for Mood Bars.
Thank you so much for having me on the panel as well. So Mood Bars, the genesis of Mood Bars came out of the fact that I am a vegan, I'm diabetic, and I'm a physician. And I realized there was nothing I could recommend to my female patients that I also would feel comfortable eating in the form of a snack of some form or fashion. Everything related to women's nutrition to date is heavily salted or heavily sugared. And I never felt good after eating any of them. So, and additionally, I also found that, you know, there's nothing really made for women in terms of mood. Mood shifts, that's okay. But there's nothing about the fact that, like, a lot of women premenstrually have mood changes. They feel better, they feel worse, you know, they feel up, they feel down, whatever. And there's nothing that has a lot of iron to replenish what we lose. So with all of that said, I, you know, met with many food scientists, found one who's amazing, and together we found 3 bars. We made 3 bars, each of which has a function specifically for women, but also, as it turns out, men really like them too. And, you know, we joke, men are not going to change anatomically by virtue of eating them, but they can still eat them and enjoy them. And that was the genesis of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So, Chris, I know that I kind of said hormonally only because I'm thinking about your daughter in this
Yes.
process. And I think that that's how, if my memory serves correctly from our initial discussion, if you could share how the functional chocolate company began, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this esteemed panel. You know, I've been in the natural product industry, wellness, mainly dietary supplements for over 30 years, and had some incredible mentors and that have taught me so much throughout this journey, but also lived that life from my parents who were from Europe. And we grew our own herbs and botanicals, made our own medicine. Growing up, we were the weird kids on the block, but not hippie kids. They were actually European, so it was very normal for them. And so fast forward, been in natural product industry for a very long time, doing product rationale, formulation, sales, marketing, research, a lot of research. And so I was raising my children. I have a daughter. It's the first girl in my family lineage for 7 generations. So nobody really knew. I certainly didn't know what to expect. And as a single dad, when she came to me and said it was right about that time for her first cycle, and she said she was scared, and which mortified me. I was way more scared than she was. And so I knew how to formulate around it for upset stomach, mood swings, cramping, and I wanted to make it symptomatic. I didn't want it to be a one-trick pony. We see a lot of that in the natural product and wellness arena. And so, but her having to grow up with a father that's been in natural products, she had homeopathics, fish oils, greens, raw everything. And she was like, Dad, please, whatever, just not another tincture, not a tea, not another pill. So I got really creative and I decided to put it in chocolate for a number of reasons, and created this incredible formula. It's in a great delivery system because of the natural plant fats that are in dark chocolate, and also masticating your food along with the scientists there with the smells and everything. You're also triggering, your brain is triggering your pancreas to release all these enzymes. So that way you get maximum nutritional uptake at the same time. So marrying that with a flavor profile, so that way the smell goes along with the function. She had her first cycle. She had the first chocolate. I got the biggest hug I've ever had in my life with tears, just moved me. My son's like, hey, what about me? He suffered from test taking anxiety, not anxious anywhere else in the rest of his life, but when it came to tests, he would just get all wound up. So I made another formula for that. And those were the first two, were just out of necessity. We say that invention is, comes out of necessity. And that's where I started doing it in my kitchen. And while still working professionally, for Nordic Naturals and Garden of Life and all these other companies making products. And I decided to go out on my own, and I saw that women's health, like Dr. Snyder, women's health was woefully underserved. And so we came out with menopause chocolate, PMS chocolate, women's libido chocolate specifically. And then we grew the line from there to gender neutral. And here we are 5 years later. And it's been a fantastic journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. So bringing you in, Deniz, thinking about Addison's trend report and analysis, the market for functional products that support mental wellness, whether it's calming for anxiety, like Chris was talking about, or maybe hormonal or happiness, these kinds of emotions are booming. What do you think is kind of fueling consumer demand right now, or what are you seeing in the headlines or reporting on?
Well, thank you, Jenna and Amy and Mindy, for having me, and it's great to be on a panel with all of you. One of the things that really came to mind, especially at the beginning of this webinar, was Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, that came out on. He argues that a consistent online presence at a young age will produce negative mental and physical health outcomes. And so I thought that was an interesting perspective on not just young people, but all across generations who are consistently online, and how that's been linked to stress, anxiety, and kind of like a mental decline. And so what we've been seeing over at FNU is, with stress being so high, especially among Gen Z and millennials, food and beverage has been a big selling point for folks, especially as food as medicine has really kind of taken off as a movement. And so consumers are looking more for ingredients that not just taste great, that's always going to be number one, but that do more than just taste great. They want something that's going to address a myriad of health issues that they're dealing with, whether it's immunity, cognition, gut health, etc.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I know I've seen that on Instagram a lot, especially as a millennial, that we are one of the most stressed out generations.
We've been through a lot.
We have been through a lot. I know, it's true. Oh my God, it's so funny. And I don't think that our access to cell phones, I just remember initially having a cell phone and it only letting me play Snake. That was the most anxiety that I had. Simpler times.
Yeah.
So Dr. Snyder, when creating effective mood supportive products usually means balancing, efficacy, taste, regulation. What have been some of the biggest challenges and breakthroughs on the formulation side for you?
So the biggest challenge we had was ashwagandha. It is really effective. It's a really efficacious way to relax, but it tastes horrible. I mean, it's bitter. And we wanted to balance any bitterness, obviously, with sweetness, but we didn't want the bars to be too sweet. We also didn't want to have to add basically crap in order to make a bar, which was supposed to be healthy, taste good. So that was the biggest issue. And we ended up using blueberries primarily, which really helped significantly. But that was where the biggest hurdle came in, was making the bars taste good, but still have benefit, and also separating them out. So the 3 bars, there's a Nourish bar, which is high in apricots, which has a lot of iron in it. And so you get a real apricot undertone. And then Soothe, which is ashwagandha focused. That has a lot of blueberries. And then Awaken has green tea for caffeine purposes. And, you know, the base being dates for all of them, it's really easy to fall in the trap of them all tasting pretty similar. So trying to differentiate them while also keeping them in line with what I, from the beginning, said. I wanted to know every ingredient. I wanted to be able to read the package and be like, oh, I know what everything is, rather than it being, you know, blue number, whatever. And this is obviously outside of my basic field. So I very much have relied on my food scientists to help, but the biggest hurdle was basically me saying, I need these parameters to be met, being everything has to be understandable, everything has to have a functional benefit, nothing has to be to anything. But all of it has to have purpose, and we need flavor to differ. So all of that stuff, and somehow she was able to nail it anyway. But really, I think I found working with someone who is so attuned to what I was saying really helped get us to where we ended up wanting to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So thinking about that, I'm going to bring it over to Mark. Mark, I know that previously we've discussed some of your most popular flavors with your edibles. Could you maybe speak to some of those maybe realizations, or maybe some of that testing process of flavoring, and then maybe also some of the challenges that you've worked through with releasing as far as regulatory goes, maybe within the states that you're in?
Yeah, I would say that as Chris and Dr. Snyder and other CBG startups know, there are all sorts of issues that arise that you're solving for on the fly. The first challenge we had was gummy shelf life. Our gummies degraded very quickly. And so that was recipe 1.0. Then we went to recipe 2.0 that was much better. And then finally recipe 3.0, which we adopted last summer when we launched in New York. We're actually going to relaunch in Illinois using recipe 3.0. We had minor cannabinoids to our THC distillate. THC distillate is in all of our edibles, and we add minor cannabinoids to drive effects. And our mistake with those was we didn't add enough when we launched in Illinois. So then we looked at data. There's not a lot of data, but we looked at data and we increased the amount of minor cannabinoids in New York, and they work, and the right complement of the different cannabinoids. So those were some of the challenges that we had, but we're comfortable where we are now. And I'm sure there'll be other roadblocks like at 3 o'clock today, but at least on those axes, we're fine.
Could you talk about maybe some of the products? What are they addressing as far as the mood?
Sure. It's a continuum. On one end of the continuum is slumber. I am a terrible sleeper, so I really wanted a product that would work. And so in order to drive sleep, we have a gummy has 10 milligrams of THC, 15 milligrams of CBN, and 10 milligrams of CBD. And Dr. Neil Iyengar, who's still with us and an advisor, Neil was the one who really designed those ratios. And we tested them and they work. And in New York, it's our second best selling SKU. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Energize, where we have 10 milligrams of THC, and we add 5 milligrams of THCV, which has almost like an Adderall-like effect, naturally occurring. And so consumers will consume those gummies if they're going out for a night out or working out. And then in between those, going from slumber to chill, where we add CBD, laugh, which is straight THC, create, where we add CBG to THC, and then, as I mentioned, energize. And so So that's where we are right now. And we're innovating, we're testing new products right now.
That's so exciting. Thank you, Mark. So then talking about this emotional storytelling mixed with, the scientific side of it, Chris, could you kind of speak how you are marketing your products and making sure that consumers know, yes, like this is the emotional side of it, or this is what we're saying, and these are the scientific facts of what you'll feel or what we've proven.
Sure. And I'm just going to jump back with
Sure.
Dr. Snyder and Mark because we are 3 CPG, but we all have 3 different. She's got nutritional fact panel. I got a dietary supplement fact panel. Mark's working in the cannabis space, which I am very familiar with here in Colorado. And it's just three different bears to go after. And there are challenges. And Mark, I agree with you, by 3 o'clock today, there will be a barrier somewhere. But to go back to your question of the, natural product industry has been great at storytelling and using anecdotal evidence and things in the past. And they kind of started it. They were the launch pad that really taught the cannabis industry how to put products together. In fact, my business partner, Nicole Smith, started Mary's Medicinals here in Colorado. And so, and we know that side very, very well. But being able to go over into regular CPG, that we can go out into regular stores, we can talk about it a little more freely, we can market differently, as I'm sure Mark will tell you. But we're also using a lot of products and ingredients as far as actives that can be trusted, have structure function statements approved by the FDA that we can then talk around. And that allows us to position the product differently. When you're talking about a dietary supplement and you have that supplement fact panel, you can then use structure function statements to talk about the function, to be able to describe the product a little bit better to that person that's going into a VMS section, vitamin mineral supplement, HABA, or now there's even functional food sets around the country that are being tested in certain retailers, and with hit or miss, because the retailer, these things, functional foods, are just on the precipice of really growing, and we've been waiting for a long time. We knew that it was coming, and we've been working on it, but the market wasn't ready, consumers weren't ready. But to Deniz's point, people are wanting more out of their money. They want more out of their calories, not just their money. They want great taste, they want satiation, and they would love to be able to have some sort of effect out of it. And being able to storytell all of that together, and that's why I went after women's health first. A, it was underserved. B, it fit in my niche of chocolate consumers as a majority of the buyers. But then when you go over to the health side, women are definitely the majority decision makers for health in the house as well. And so we were trying to put all this together with taste profile and formulations. And my formulations are extremely complex, anywhere from 12 to 15 nutraceuticals, botanicals, minerals, herbs, essential fatty acids in each one. And to be able to tell that story, it gets a little daunting, Jenna. That's why we got to do it in categories. And so we have gender neutral categories like stress, anxiety, energy, focus, sleep. Mark, I also had to create a sleep product for myself. So if we want to trade off and test each other's sleep products, I'm down with that. But it's also one of those things where you got to look at the trends in the marketplace. I think Addison did a good job of showing certain trends with collagen. We also know that vanity always sells, just like the big ones, energy, sleep. There's always been those that have lived as great sellers in the natural product. And it's boomed over 40 years, and it's not just in a little independent health food store down the street, and it's not just Whole Foods or Sprouts. You're seeing Walmart push for menopause sections. You're seeing Target have more call to action. And the great thing about bars like mine or Dr. Snyder's is they can be merchandised in many different places. I mean, I'm in bookstores, I'm in day spas, not just health food stores and not just traditional grocery stores either. So the growth of this movement for functional foods has just been astounding. You go to Expo West and you can see it. It's huge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. So now I'm going to ping it back over to Deniz just to kind of speak to how you're seeing maybe brands be successful or maybe unsuccessful with communicating. Thank you so much, Dr. Snyder, for joining us today. We so appreciate it. And I can't wait to hear more about what Mood Bars does in the future. All right. So Deniz, sorry about that. From your perspective, can you talk about how brands are successfully or unsuccessfully communicating emotional benefits to consumers?
I think a lot of the challenge, and Chris, you kind of touched on this on how to tell your story through your ingredients. Right now, consumers are looking more closely at the label. You know, you have instant access now to information that can tell you what something is, and it all really starts, I think, on the label. I think brands that are doing well are really hyper focused on what exactly they're putting into their product. Every single thing counts, and in that, and they're also challenged with cleaning it up, right? Because now ultra processed foods are top of mind for a lot of families, a lot of consumers, and so you're really challenged with having a very small kind of ingredient list that packs a punch that consumers can look at, identify, and understand. And then I think the brands that maybe are challenged are the ones that maybe have too much on the packaging. Maybe it's too many claims, right? When I think the sweet spot for a brand, and every brand for every category is going to be different. It's identifying what matters the most to your consumer. Is it the low sugar content? Is it the high protein or high fiber? Is it the adaptogens? Is it the nootropics? It's identifying maybe the top one or two highlights of your product that's maybe going to go on the front, and then looking at the back and making sure that it's clean and that it has the right ingredients for what is being touted on the front. So there's a lot of challenge there because you're working on such limited real estate. And I think especially the bigger you go, the less of a margin of error you have, because having to pull these products off shelves is a whole other animal. But I think that's been some of the balancing act that a lot of brands have had to deal with, is just telling that story from the ingredient label to the front in a way that makes sense. And then even using QR codes, I think or connected packaging has been really big. It's been something that I think a lot of different brands, especially overseas, have been experimenting with as a way to still connect with consumers and even, gamify the experience as well, and trying to understand ingredients and create a little virtual education platform as well. So there's really no silver bullet, and I'm sure you all understand this as well. You're probably always thinking about how to tell your story on the package. How do you stand out so quickly on shelves? Because consumers have, a 2-second attention span. So I think there's always a lot of trial and error there.
Absolutely. That's a really great point, because I think that with COVID, just like, your sense of taste and smell, no one really understood how important that was until COVID hit. And now I think that that's moving into also wellness and your well-being. So now we're seeing people really kind of go beyond just the buzzwords of clean or all natural and say, well, what does that mean to be clean? What does it mean to be all natural? Yes. How can I be more educated? And like you're saying, in the age of instant transmission, being able to just pop open your phone and research those ingredients changes the consumer experience and also changes the relationship that brands have with the consumer.
It does. And one other thing I wanted to add was just if you're in retail, it's that relationship with your retailer too. So how are you working with your retailer to make sure that your product is going to be, you know, on an end cap, or if it's in the middle of an aisle, what are you going to do? What are some ideas? Can you change the packaging so that maybe you're not horizontal, but you're vertical, or vice versa, and you stack better? Things like those kinds of things you don't really think about until you start having to think about them. But I would say even, you know, working with retailers to develop that strategy is also really helpful.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. That's because then it's like, I'm also thinking to that Sex and the City episode where she walks into a bookstore and sees that her book is like off to the side. And it's like, hold on a second. It should be out for everyone to see. So I can understand that if you were to have a brand and have your product. All right. So for our last few minutes, I have one more question for our panelists, or two more, sorry. Chris, what role do partnerships or collaborations play in growing consumer trust or expanding awareness for your brand?
Boy, you know, that's a big question that could definitely eat up the rest of this time. You know, consumer trust, I think it goes back to some of the things that were just mentioned. Making sure that your products are clean, you know, having ethically sourced chocolate, non-GMO, gluten-free, cholesterol-free, all the bells and whistles and the infographics that you have to have on your label is a quick translation. Those infographics, as Deniz said, you know, 2 seconds, maybe 3, if they see it on the shelf, and it has to be merchandised in the right spot, back to the placement in the store. And that's the biggest question I get from a new retailer. And as soon as I get a retailer on, if I can get them and their trust, just to Deniz's point, then that translates to them being able to do the right thing and merchandise it in the right spot, with, you know, you know, they have a sense of, what's the best way to put it? They believe in the product.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to see you succeed, because they don't want to put dogs. Real estate is king. Every square inch is equated to a number when it comes to stores. And so if you can get them to believe in it, then they believe in it, and they're going to do their best, because you got to use the marketing vehicles through the retailer to reach their consumers. They know their consumers best. I am trying to go on trends of what consumers want, but they know their consumers and how to speak to them better than anyone. And so they help. It is a coordinated effort between us and the retailer to try and best service the consumer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. So Mark, same question for you. It was really incredible for me to be able to try the Bettering Company's products. Recently at an event in Chicago, you had sort of like a pop-up situation at an art event, which was so cool because really, in an art gallery. And it was a way for people to at least try the flavors, and then from there could be introduced to the product. Could you share maybe some partnerships or collaborations that have been helping you introduce the product throughout your areas of distribution?
For sure. When we launched in Illinois, we didn't really appreciate the value and the need of partnerships with dispensaries. And in New York, we've got some really phenomenal partnerships, and we're really trying to engage with consumers in dispensaries through different events and promotions. We've used some digital media, which has been successful, some meta campaigns and otherwise. And what we've recently begun to do is exactly what you mentioned, where we'll pop up in a gallery. I think there were probably, I think we handed out maybe 400 samples that night. We did a wine crawl with 2 other local businesses in Lincoln Park in Chicago. And I think we handed out about 300 samples at that event. And we're really trying to target events where we think our consumers will exist. And so those are the two areas that we're pursuing.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right. In our final moments, in one word, what does the future of mood enhancing food and beverage look like to you? Mark, do you want to start us? And then Chris and then Deniz, you can give us an end cap on that.
Sure. One word. I'm going to do two words. Rapidly accelerating.
Love it. Thank you, Chris.
Explosive.
Nice. Okay, Deniz.
It's hyphenated, value added.
Nice. Okay. Very well done. Thank you so much to my panelists. I appreciate your time and all of your insight to this incredibly stacked webinar. I will now pass. If you have any questions for our panelists, by the way, we'll be answering them offline, but we'll be sending all of these notes later through the newsletter. Be sure to subscribe to that newsletter. Just go to the World Taste and Smell website and you can do that. But I'm sure Mindy's going to say that. So let me kick myself off here and pass the mic to Mindy. Thank you again, panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Amazing conversation. We hope you leave informed and inspired by the possibilities that open up when we explore flavor as both function and feeling. The World Taste and Smell Association is shining light on a space that is filled with creativity, innovation, and momentum. As a neutral NGO, we're here to celebrate, collaborate, and build a better future for sensory health and advocate for a growing public health crisis affecting 1 in 3 people. Join our community of working group by sharing your expertise with us. You can be a panelist, you can hop on our podcast, which is the World of Taste and Smell, and we can gather insights to form a brain trust so that we can translate science into action. We have a public health survey for the USA right now running at tasteandsmell.org, and we have many events coming up. Visit our event calendar to get involved. We are hosting the 2025 Global Taste and Smell Summit this year at the Culinary Institute of America. So if you're interested, please also visit us on tasteandsmell.org for more information on that. There's an innovation showcase. We're asking everyone on today's panel to meet IRL so that we can come up with solutions together and create a platform for impact. Whether you're a science, storyteller, innovator, or advocate, you have a place in this movement with us. Let's make sensory health more visible, equitable, and actionable for all. Thank you all for your time. And if you need to reach out, we are hello@tasteandsmell.org. I am Mindy, co-founder, and you can reach me at mindy@tasteandsmell.org. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you know 1 in 3 people will experience taste or smell loss in their lifetime? Whether it's long COVID, aging, or something you can't explain, you're not alone. The World Taste and Smell Association wants to hear from you. Share your experience at tasteandsmell.org. Your voice can help fuel vital research and raise awareness for this invisible health crisis. Let's stop the silence. Take the survey today at tasteandsmell.org.